And welcome to this fantastic The Nutcrackers pop-up book club. And it's pretty exciting. It's American Ballet Theater. And basically all of this to say that we are here to get you excited for this upcoming The Nutcracker. It is going to be the 10th anniversary of Alexei Ratmansky's American Ballet Theater's The Nutcracker being at the Segerstrom Center over in Orange County. And it's a huge, huge thing. So big round of applause that we'll do for this big moment for American Ballet Theater. And I would love to introduce a really fantastic panel today, starting with Doherty. Cy is a dancer in the Court of Ballet, and he joined ABT Studio Company back in 2019 and has actually been with the main company since 2021, post-pandemic. And, in the Nutcracker, Cy's performed the roles of the butler, it was a lot of fun, Major Domo, Arabian Man, and of course, the infamous Mouse King. So he's definitely been in this production for a second, done some pretty fun roles. And then, of course, there's Lauren Bonfiglio. Now, Lauren is very special because she, first of all, of course, is also a dancer in the Court of Ballet at American Ballet Theater. But first of all, not only did she attend, ABT's Young Dancer Summer Program and the Summer Intensive and the ABT JKO School, and then joined the main company in 2014. But most importantly, Lauren performed the role of Clara, the lead role of this production, way back in 2010 and 2011. So that's kind of cool. And so she was one of the original Claras to whom that role was choreographed on alongside Kai Monroe back in the day. And those were actually the two first years of that production. And since in the main company, Lauren has performed the roles of Columbine, the Spanish dance, and she's also been one of Nutcracker's sisters. Those awesome green, white, and pink, wicked themed characters. So there you go. And then, of course, lastly, it's my pleasure to introduce Danielle Ventimiglia. Danielle is ABT's production stage manager and has been for the last 20 years. She's kind of amazing. Actually, in fact, over 20 years, I must correct. And also, Danielle has worked on Ratmansky's The Nutcracker since its inception in 2010. And of course, all of Alexei's productions that he's brought to American Ballet Theater. And I might even add that she's been an integral part and a consistent integral part to American Ballet Theater, achieving all the incredible performances that you've witnessed throughout the last 2-3 decades. And many people don't see her because she's behind the scenes, but she really is one of the most essential people making the magic that you get to see on these big stages around the world. Danielle Ventimiglia, everybody. And lastly, myself, I'm Justin Souriau-Levine, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. I am a director, producer, writer, filmmaker, CEO of JSL Studios, which is a film production company that is based in New York and in Paris, and soon to also have a third arm in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And I'm the director producer of the feature film Back to the Present, which will be coming out in the fall of 2026 worldwide, and much more to come on that. But this is not about me. I was, in fact, actually the little mouse. I was the first ever little mouse in this production of The Nutcracker from 2010 to 2014. And then I played Fritz as well in 2015 during the first year at Segerstrom. And I did 6 years of the show, went to Japan with American Ballet Theater for this show, to Tokyo, Biwako, and Osaka, as well as the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. And it is safe to say that this production specifically in American Ballet Theater changed the course of my life forever. And everything that I achieve every single day is because of the impact that ABT had on me as a kid. With that said, I'm very proud and honored to moderate this discussion. And let's get started. Fantastic. So the first thing I would like to, I guess, jump into is a bit of the story, right? I think it's great, of course, to know that the Nutcracker has been around for over 100 years in many different versions and is, of course, a holiday favorite here in the US. And Ratmansky's The Nutcracker made its world premiere in 2010 at the Brooklyn Academy of Music in New York, aka BAM in Brooklyn, and made its West Coast premiere in 2015 at the Segerstrom Center for the Arts, and has been performed at Segerstrom, as I mentioned, for the past 10 years. So basically, The Nutcracker, we all know the story, but just for the thrill of it, Cy, would you like to get us started on us understanding what the basic synopsis of The Nutcracker is?
Yeah. Okay. So the basic synopsis of the Nutcracker is that it's Christmas Eve. There's a Christmas party at this family's house, the Stahlbaum house, and Clara receives this Nutcracker as a gift from Drosselmeyer. And from there, she, in the middle of the night, you don't know if it's a dream or not, but all of a sudden there's all these mice, and she starts to shrink, the world gets bigger around her, and she all of a sudden is in a part of this, crazy battle between soldiers and mice, and then she wins, and then she goes off to this other land where she, grows up and becomes like an older version of herself with the prince who helped, or the Nutcracker who turned into a prince who helped her defeat the Rat King. Um,
You took that one personally, but
yeah. Yeah, it's just about their story. She doesn't know if what happened was real. She wakes up and she's just sort of like, we know what just happened.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we wonder, is it a dream or not? And that's by the
Yeah.
way, incredible synopsis of the story. And I think that's also part of, I think, what makes Alexei's version of the Nutcracker, in my opinion at least, very special, is that in a lot of productions we talk about the Sugar Plum Fairy being the lead that has the pas de deux with the Cavalier at the end. In this production, it's actually older Clara and older the Nutcracker, which sort of gives this an additional storyline and narrative, which is actually pretty cinematic. But that is actually what I think is the one of the coolest specificities of this production is the through line and sort of the payoff at the end, which we're not going to spoil. And another, I guess, scene that was newer about this production, which I'd love for Danielle to speak a little bit about, which is the kitchen scene. The kitchen scene. This is the only production ever of the Nutcracker that includes the kitchen scene, which is a bit of a prologue. And Danielle, would you like to speak a little bit more about the meaning of this scene and what it means to you as well?
Sure. I think it's one of my favorite things about this Nutcracker, and certainly definitely different than any other production we've ever seen. But part of it is just the curtain opens on the most absolutely gorgeous Victorian style kitchen, and you kind of can't believe it. And then immediately, within a minute or two, you have Alexei's humor that comes through. And that's with the introduction of the little mouse who's chewing on cheese in the beginning. And everyone looks for the little mouse right at the very beginning. And then there's a whole chase sequence where the chef and everyone, they're all just trying to, chase exactly. Um, chase this mouse out of the kitchen. And it's such a real moment. It's the prep for the party. It's the parents coming in last second. It's the butler saying, "We're ready to begin. We're about to start." And I think it's a scene I will never get old. Will never get old to me. It's just absolutely. This has become the only thing I can picture when I hear this music now. I love it.
Brilliant. And I think that same for me, by the way. It's the only thing I can see as well when I hear the music. And funnily enough, having been the little mouse in that scene for many years, it was also this special thing for me as well to notice when I was noticed by the audience as the little mouse, meaning you can hear when all of a sudden there's kids saying, "Hey, look there, mom," and you can see in that moment is sort of a reveal. And I think the little mouse. I think I always looked at that role, having played it. I always look at that role as a symbolism for what Alexei tries to achieve with his ballets, meaning they're technically, I mean, the technique of that the dancers have to portray and have to showcase in any Alexei ballet is beyond any, production at all. I mean, dancers always speak about how complex and challenging his ballets are to perform physically based off the technique. But the other side of Alexei is this playful, joyful humor, as you mentioned, and just love for life and a bit of whimsical magic that is within him. And he makes sure to instill bits and pieces of that at every moment of the ballet. So it opens up to a much wider audience, meaning that those who are coming to witness the technical prowesses of, the adult Clara and Nutcracker in the second act are going to be thrilled by that. But all of the younger kids who don't really care about technique and so on and so forth, they're going to be super interested in what's going on with the little mouse and the Rat King and all the mice and all of the choreography that's going on with the party children in the second scene of the production. So I think that's what also makes this production so special is there's a little bit of everything for everyone. That's rare. A lot of times you're only looking at one or two things on stage. In this moment, there's too much to look at. You'll miss something. You'll need to see it twice. You'll need to see it three times. And you'll start to always see something you didn't see the last time. And the only way to really watch this is to watch it every single day from December 11th to December 21st. And if you do, then only then may you actually see every single little Easter egg that Alexei has put into this incredible production. But actually, let me take it to another scene, Danielle, to keep the emphasis on you. Look, I mean, a little birdie told me that you're a big fan of the snow scene. Would you like to tell me a little more about it?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And Lauren can certainly, having danced it, can
Yeah.
probably attest to this as well. But yeah, I mentioned that I think the snow scene in Alexei's production in particular is one of the most beautiful that I've ever seen. Again, we all can picture something with music and what you're kind of expecting. And honestly, it's funny that you just said with every viewing, you see something else. It's really true. It took me a long time, and I've seen this production now since its
Yeah.
inception. And there's a darkness in it. There's all these moments that he brings out, which then makes it all the more special when it's light. And then, you just see the depths, the absolute depths, and the technique of what the corps de ballet are doing is truly everything between the costumes, the snow, and what they're actually physically doing, which is just one of the most technically challenging kind of offbeat sort of moves. It's beautiful. What a way to end an act. I again have trouble watching any other production now, having seen and done our production so many times. Always worth it to see everything, but boy, do I love, yes, I love our snow scene. It's the reason I can keep doing it over and over again. That and the music, of course, just in general.
But that's brilliant. And I, by the way, completely agree. And actually, I also agree with you that we should hear what Lauren has to say about that scene, having danced it for so many years, having danced it for definitely over 10 years. Lauren, please share with us how you feel about the snow scene and how it feels to actually be a part of the corps de ballet in that moment when you're on stage wrapping up Act One of this production.
Yeah, I mean, I think another gift that Alexei um, he's given us this ability to hear music in a different way. The emphasis he puts on certain movements, the way he counts, the way he moves his own body to demonstrate the choreography, you hear like an entirely different like score. And being a part of it as a child, as Clara, and then as a snowflake, it's like I've seen every angle of the snow scene, like on stage. The formations that are made are stunning, and they really do, it resembles the progression of a snowstorm. It starts out like delicately like flurrying, and then it turns into like, a gusty wind, like icicle sharp. Like you feel like the coldness of the snowflakes kind of circling in on the Clara and the Nutcracker. And then, towards the end of the scene, Drosselmeyer comes in and it gets light again, and he kind of saves them from the snowflakes. But I think the really special thing about being the Clara and the Nutcracker in this production was that Alexei really wanted us to be kids, not dancers. Yes. He wanted us to be whatever our relationship was. Was it friendship? Was there love? It was a playful, you're just children in the snow outside, reacting in the moment to each other. And then that was the impulse to the movement. It was always what the first like human reaction was.
Yes.
And that's where the movement came in after.
That's brilliant, Lauren. And I was even going to piggyback on that and say that also having been a kid in that production, especially with the Little Mouse, but also with Fritz, I felt it felt real. Like, I don't know for you, but I think especially as a kid on that stage, you really feel like the world around you is real. The sets become real things, which is really cool. And I think the same experience can be said of someone in the audience, because of how larger than life some of these sets are, which is a whole other thing that I'd like Danielle to speak about. But before I go there, I do want to just add the idea of the snow falling, because I remember during the first ever tech rehearsal at the Kennedy Center, Alexei kept me on stage and asked, and so he took me over the arm like this, and we just watched the snow scene together with the snow coming down, and we were on the stage while it was happening. And I'll never forget that because I felt like I was in the snowstorm. So I felt it. I never got to be in the snow scene in any other way than that moment, ever. But that was pretty magical because it was so real. And I think it's kind of cool that you speak upon that because, something feeling real and larger than life in an on-stage production is a massive compliment to the work itself and to the combination of Alexei's imagination, but also the incredible sets that have been built and costumes that were built for this. And actually, maybe Danielle, could you perhaps speak a little bit about these sets because they're massive and larger than life, perhaps talking about the tree, if that's not too much of a spoiler alert. Go for it, please.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The sets, and I actually want to just go back and say something else we do as stage managers is we're in charge of the supernumeraries, the extras, which are all the children. And I loved, Lauren, just hearing you say, Alexei wanted us to be kids, and Justin, you reiterating this. And I imagine Sai, same thing, like he wants people to be real. And it is what we tell the kids every single September when we're doing the audition. We say, stop. You have your dance training, now be a kid. How would you react? What's your reaction if you get a gift? And on stage, they're getting a little wooden toy, but is this in today's world? Is this an Xbox? Is this, what is this? Is this an iPhone? And we try to get those reactions out of people. So sorry, that's the aside.
Oh, no, absolutely.
But the scenery is quite large. I will say at ABT, we do an awful lot of large productions. So it's not the largest, but it is one of. And I will also say that from when we did it in BAM, where we had much less room, to Segerstrom, watching the tree be able to like actually do what it was designed to do, and grow. The small tree grows electronically, not to give too much away. And then there's a large tree that comes out. And to me, one of the most extraordinary moments is a large chair that comes out on stage, and that's all I'll say. But it is a stunning moment. And to transform you into this world. It's so nice to hear that, like, as young people, you sort of felt like it was a real sort of dream scenario coming to life. That's really that's what the goal was of the designs. And yeah, the scenery is large, but definitely something we've all learned to handle with the amazing crew out at Segerstrom. So
Brilliant. And again, on that note, it's really interesting because as a kid, I remember that the very first ever audition that we did with Alexei was also so special because when you talked about how and that's actually amazingly delighted to hear that it's still that way where the kids are being asked to act like kids. What we had to do during the first ever audition was there was a little mouse and a big mouse. And this was for the boys. And basically, the big mouse had a cheese, and the little mouse had to steal the cheese and run away, hide, and then eat the cheese. That was the choreography. And I remember that I think I was the first to go, and I think I was in a group at the time with a famous the infamous Nazir Muhammad, one of the Muhammad twins, who now I believe is soloist at Houston Ballet. And anyway, we were the pair. He was the big mouse. I was the little mouse. I was, 3 foot something, and he was at least 6 foot by then. I'm kidding. But so basically, we did this choreography, and I think we were like the second group to go. And then Alexei pulled me forward and basically talked to me and said, okay, you're going to be the little mouse. Thank you so much. And Franco De Vita walked me out. And Franco De Vita used to be the head of the JKO school. And I remember I went out into the hallway, I started crying because I thought that it was a bad thing. I thought that because all these kids before were doing pirouettes and all kinds of crazy things and telling me that the thing that we had to all try to do is become soldiers. And so I thought it was the end of the world and everything. And I went out there and cried. And then I remember Alexei personally came back out because he heard I was crying. He told me, no, this is great news. This is a good thing. You'll see. Remember, it's a really good thing. And the rest was history, and I think that that's the magic that Alexei instills in people is he invents things. He reacts. Even shared with me that, I don't know if you know this, Daniela, because you were there, Danielle, at the very beginning. But apparently, the Little Mouse was a role that he was sort of wanting to include in a couple scenes. Then it became a bigger thing when we were working on it, and I didn't even know that as a kid. So for me, it was this constant growth and imagination, and constantly imagining of like, where else could the Little Mouse pop up. And I think that that's again how Alexei's brilliant imagination works. And you can see that in the ballet, where it's so many brilliant ideas that he just popped one on top of the other, like icing on this beautiful cake. And I think that that's also what makes this production so enjoyable to watch, is that it is this overflow of imagination and yeah, whimsical fun. So to move on from all of that as well, I would love to sort of go into, I guess, to stay in tandem about Alexei, because I think that it's very important to discuss who he is and how special he is. I mean, Alexei Ratmansky is one of the greatest choreographers of his generation. And it goes without saying that he's the ultimate sort of creator slash artist in every way. And Alexei was the artist in residence at American Ballet Theater for well over a decade. And, obviously, choreographed a ton of incredible productions for American Ballet Theater, including this production of The Nutcracker, The Whipped Cream, The Sleeping Beauty. He even brought productions over, such as The Golden Cockerel. I think he also choreographed Firebird. I think that was for ABT as well. So clearly bringing a lot of incredible works that have become ABT staples, especially when it comes to Segerstrom, because they've all gone to Segerstrom. So the Segerstrom fans out there have seen The Nutcracker, they've seen Harlequinade, they've seen the Sleeping Beauty, and so on and so forth. So especially Whipped Cream. Whipped Cream had its world premiere there. So anyway,
quite a few things had a world premiere out there. Got to give the credit to the California coast. It's an incredible place for world premieres.
It's brilliant. And I could not agree more. And I think that that's why the Segerstrom audiences have been lucky enough to witness some of those incredible performances. And that's why I think that having this Nutcracker over there is such a special gem to have there, because now those folks in New York don't have it. They have to take a flight all the way to California just to see it these years. And lots of people do that. So, it goes to show how special it is. So if you're out there in Orange County or anywhere on the West Coast, you have no excuse. People are flying over from New York. So you really have to try to make it work. But anyway, to stay on course with Alexei, Lauren, having worked with him personally on many different productions as well, how would you describe Alexei on one end as an artist, and how would you describe him as a person?
I mean, I'm like very proud that I've been able to work with him as a child and then throughout my years in the company. He is to me like a genius to work with. Like I said, how he hears the music, how his movement quality is unlike anything else I've ever done. Those performance experiences on stage doing his ballets have been some of the most fulfilling performances and memories, for sure. He's very demanding and he sets a very high standard, but that's like a dancer's dream, to have something to attain and achieve, whether it's just the simplicity of how he wants you to move to the music or a subtle reaction. I also appreciate how much he cares about the artistry that goes into his work. It's so subtle and so detailed, and it's just to have that as a gift as a dancer, for sure.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. And Sai, for you, obviously having worked with Alexei more as a young adult into becoming an adult, how was your sort of how were your experiences working with Alexei?
Well, he really just knows how to like push you to the, like, you think you can like only go to this point, but he will always, make that farther, and that's just like what everyone now knows and what everyone expects. And whenever you dance a Romansky work, you just know that you need to push yourself like past where you think you can go. And that's just something that's really special because, sometimes you get into like, you do go to the studio every day, you sort of like get into this routine, and it's easy to sort of just go through the movements, and to have someone to really push you to to the extreme is really special, and it just makes everyone a better artist.
It's brilliantly said. And before I switch pages, one last thing I'd like to say as well on working with Alexei and what's so interesting and unique about him specifically as a choreographer, and which is totally showcased in this production, is his attention to the details. And by details, it can also sometimes mean with the supernumeraries, meaning every supernumerary matters. Every background character, every set like piece of set matters to him. And I think that's also special because he creates, when we talk about world building, we were speaking about world building as we were hopping on, and I think that he is the epitome of a world builder as well as a choreographer, where he builds a world that you then jump into for whatever the runtime of the production may be. And what's kind of cool about that is that, for any production, but specifically to this production, he spent time with each party kid and each soldier, and he would really go to each different person, whether their role was the most important in the ballet or not when it comes to notes, because he wanted to make sure that each person was really playing the character that they were portraying, no matter how small or how big. And that goes all the way to very technical notes for the dancers and especially the principals, but it goes all the way down to the supernumeraries and the kids, where each movement is very specific and each performance is very specific. And I think that's what makes it such a larger than life production. To move on from all of that, let's speak a little bit more about Sai and the roles and characters you had to play, because I know that you've played, of course, the Mouse King and the Arabian and many, many other wonderful characters. Could you maybe speak a little bit about the experience of playing the Mouse King with those 7 heads? How does that feel? How is it to be the villain of Act 1? Please let us know how all of that feels.
It's a blast, honestly. Putting on that costume it's really fun. There's like a whole bunch of straps. Like the heads are so heavy that like you have to sort of, make it fit your body perfectly so it's not, like choking you as you're out there. Um, I mean, people don't really realize, but when you put on that head and you're out there and like the lighting's dark and there's all these like, random spotlights coming in, it's really not easy to see. So you're basically like blind going out there, which makes it just a little bit more fun because like all you can do is be expressive with your body because you don't really know what's happening. Um, and so that just makes it super fun. And it's fun being the villain because it's also comedic, so you can sort of make fun of yourself. You're trying to fight the Nutcracker, but you're also scared of like getting hit by the Nutcracker, even though like in the heels I'm probably like 6'6" out there, and the Nutcracker is like like a kid. So it's just funny. Just I don't know. I have a blast.
Brilliant. No,
I
and
have a
also obviously,
question.
go
Oh,
ahead. Go ahead, Danielle.
you guys work out the little punching, the little final little fight?
A little bit, yeah. We sort of like get into a groove. We sort of like have like I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna give you a little push, but as soon as he like comes towards me, I'm like trying to get out of there. And then we go over like yeah, we have like a little like, fighting sequence. I mean, it's fun. It's really fun working with the kids, especially the little mouse.
There we go. Amazing. No, and actually, I'm very curious to hear because, especially with Little Mouse, there's been all kinds of changes because not all the Mouse Kings were strong. So this was a really funny anecdote, is that the original Mouse King was the infamous, incredible Tom Foster, right? No one can Mouse King like Tom Foster. There are many who got close, but Tom Foster was the ultimate Mouse King. And so he was strong, right? So he could, and I was also, I weighed 2 pounds. So between the two of us, we could do some pretty crazy things. But eventually, when I got a little, taller and a bit, I started weighing 4 pounds instead of 2 pounds. And the other Mouse Kings weren't as strong. They were struggling to even hold me in their arms. So how is that still the choreography? Are you still holding the little
Yeah,
mouse?
so when we get out there, I sort of like put little mouse in my arm and we're just like living our lives, high-fiving. Hardly because we can't really see each other, so we're sort of
Yeah. You have to imagine, and you always miss the high five, right?
yeah,
Okay,
yes,
great.
every time.
Every time. Okay. So again, another stat. The only person with whom I never missed a high five over 5 years was Tom Foster.
Oh, really?
All the others, it's like a 50-50. Tom
Yeah.
Foster, I don't know what he was doing in that, but he was looking. He was not going to miss my hand every time he did it. Yep.
That's
His
hilarious.
hand's
Yeah.
so big that you couldn't miss it, because he's a tall guy. But
True.
but yeah, anyway, very, very funny, actually. It's funny that you miss it every time. Well, maybe this year, if you want to catch Cy actually getting the high five as Mouse King, you're going to have to watch every single show from December 11th to December 21st if you want to get a chance, a glimpse of a chance at seeing the high five being pulled up. But to move on also to Lauren, because I know you've played many different roles now. So, I mean, I'm curious about a lot of them. One role I'm curious to ask you about, I'm now forgetting the name of it. It's Columbine. Because that's a really fun choreography, and it's almost like this, 1920s silent film, homage in terms of it's very Chaplin-esque. And I'd just be curious to hear how you feel about performing that, because it's a really great little solo moment, and you're supposed to be a bit of a robot. And please feel free to elaborate on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a role that I love. You get wheeled on stage in a pitch black box, and then the doors swing open and you pop out, and the doll-like movement is quite challenging to execute for sure. But like you said, the costume is stunning. Like, it is unbelievably beautiful. And we have to wear like a mask, so it's you try to embody that look while also being very doll-like and sharp. And it's also the relationship between Columbine and Harlequin is he's trying to like hug you and give you kisses, and you're a little bit sassy. So it's like to still remain like doll-like and poised while also portraying that relationship.
Yes.
But it's hard, and I so vividly remember being a child in the party scene and watching all of the dolls, the Columbines jump out of the box and do the choreography. So to get to do it now it's very special for sure.
That's pretty amazing. And you also touched upon another subject matter I wanted to mention, which is, of course, Richard Hudson's incredible costumes. There's so many of these costumes that are pretty game-changing and pretty unbelievable. You don't usually find such elaborate costumes in ballets as you do with Richard Hudson, who also, I believe, designed the costumes from The Sleeping Beauty. But so maybe, Danielle, could you maybe speak upon that a little bit more? Because obviously you've worked obviously in tandem with that in terms, obviously, the mice, and I can speak to Cy in a second about those mice heads, or the rat heads rather, because they're a little crazy. But for you, how do you feel about all those costumes and how sort of amazing they are, and especially seeing them from your position, sort of having a bigger overview and very detailed overview at the same time? How do you feel about all these incredible costumes? And yeah, please feel free to share your thoughts.
It's one of my favorite things to show people is how gorgeous these costumes are up close, because you can presume that, if you're watching from a distance, that maybe some shortcuts have been taken or things like that. These are silks and taffetas and lace and basically haute couture that has been designed. And honestly, the biggest process, I think, was probably Alexei working with Richard in terms of saying, I want the dancer to be able to do X, Y, Z. And as we've touched upon, his choreography is challenging. So the first time, for example, the sisters the costumes are definitely, you're not looking at tutus. And then you add a top hat on, basically. That's askew and has to be secured properly every night. And we have a huge team of hair and makeup and costume people who are working to keep these costumes in great shape. And watching the sisters during the technical rehearsals, the first time they put on these costumes, trying to do a single pirouette, let alone anything else, everyone had to shift their balance. And again, I'm sure as dancers, you guys can talk more about this, but you have to literally change everything that you can do in a leotard completely goes out the window when you're having to add weight here, a skirt that billows as you're turning, and all this other stuff, or a head where you can barely see out of. and we do rehearsals with all of these people who are doing this for the first time because then you add in the lights and everything else. It's a challenge. Every time, I'm always amazed at what the dancers are able to do. Again, you watch it from a studio standpoint and you say, wow, that's hard. Then you watch them put on the costume for the first time and try to execute the steps, and then not only try, master them. And it's a cool process to watch.
Yeah, and I was going to say when you speak about the heads, I know Sai probably has some crazy stories as well. For me with the Little Mouse, I was definitely pushing that role and pushing every moment to the fullest, and I would always give like 1,000% on stage. And at one point, and a few times, that leads to funny things happening, such as with the Polichinelle scene. Again, not spoiling anything. The Little Mouse appears, but how does he appear? We don't know. Anyway, basically, the Little Mouse is running away from the Polichinelles. And at one point, when that was happening, and not spoiling anything, I was running downstage, and I remember I tripped. And when I tripped, because I'm supposed to slip, and it's on purpose. But after I did the slip, I tripped on someone's leg. I actually think someone did on purpose, but that was like a joke. I don't know. I have to go back to my memories to really remember that. But I'm actually now remembering someone telling me they did it as a joke. But anyway, I'm not going to say any names. But anyway, I tripped and I fell. And what happened is my head like switched and it went the other way because my head was so small that even the helmet, even if it was designed on me, it still was like too big for my face. So it just flipped and it was backwards. So I was pitch black and I had to run. And so someone picked up on it and different people picked up on it. So they're all like guiding me like audibly. They're all saying, okay, you go left now. So I wouldn't go into the orchestra pit. And it worked out. And I remember it was so fun. And I can only imagine the audience seeing me with my backwards head and wondering, wow, that guy can really stretch his neck, And then I came back on. And anyway, so that funny things like that happen, which is a lot of fun. Sai, do you have any similar stories when you were the Mouse King or have been the Mouse King?
You know what? I've had pretty good luck. I haven't, had any like fails, but I've been around a lot of things that have happened. People sometimes you don't see like the leg of the chair when you're running, and people will just like run into it. One of the hardest thing as a normal mouse is that there's like a whole bunch of soldiers that are in the center of the stage, and we're all running around because sometimes I'll be a normal mouse, like on an occasion. You have to look for your specific soldier to grab and bring to a certain spot. And that's probably the hardest thing because you're all wearing these masks and you can't really see very many things. And all the soldiers are like they're all wearing the same exact thing and you can't really recognize them. So it happens a lot of shows where someone might grab the wrong soldier.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember that.
it
And
happens.
you'd hear about it right after that all come out. Oh my God, he grabbed me. No, he grabbed me. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it
What
makes
about
it
your
feel like a real battle,
tail?
by the way. Yeah.
Oh, the tail.
Great
Yeah,
question.
the tail can cause problems as well. Sometimes, they'll get attached, like caught on the set, or someone might step on your tail from behind. And then with the king, I have like 1,000 tails. Um,
Do.
so like as soon as I step backstage, like I have them like in my arms so that no one is stepping on them. We try to tell everyone to hold your tails when you're backstage, or
Yep,
else
I
you're
remember that.
gonna cause something. But yeah, it's really, you never know what's going to happen during battle scene, but that's sort of what makes it fun. I think it makes it fun for everybody who's watching. It's definitely hard to see, but you get the hang of it eventually.
And it adds to the magic because in a way, the fact that there's a little bit of confusion and you can't really see, I feel like it also brings out of all of our performances. I felt that as a kid, that, the fact that there are actual challenges that we have to face makes it much more real and it leaves room for some, bit of whimsical magic to happen. But to
Yeah.
stay on your topic with the Mouse King, because we wouldn't let you escape it, we have to talk about, for all of the modern ABT fans, we have to talk about your viral Mouse King dancing videos on TikTok and how much they boomed and how most people know this production only through this very, very sassy Mouse King that dances quite brilliantly on TikTok. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that and where the inspiration came from?
Yeah, I mean, so okay, what I think is really special about like the mice is their costumes. Um no other production has like these type of costumes. They're all wearing these like little tuxedos And it's honestly the cutest thing you've ever seen. Which is funny because they're all, villains. They're all bad guys, but somehow they're cute. Um, and so I just knew that like this would be fun, We're wearing these cute, weird costumes, like let's film a little video. And I obviously didn't expect it to cause what it did. I mean, now every single company in the world and every single ballet school in the world is posting videos in their rat costumes. So it's really neat. And it's really fun to do and to create, and I'm glad that people love them so much.
That's pretty brilliant. And I have to also talk about how this production of the Nutcracker at American Ballet Theater is also a rite of passage, right? And I think obviously for myself and Lauren, it genuinely was a rite of passage from the youngest age. For Lauren, it's for a real rite of passage because she's been there for every single production since the very beginning of time, which is unbelievable. But when it go, even for you as well, Sai, it was probably the first ever production that you performed in as an apprentice. And over here, we can see with Lauren and the Nutcracker way back in 2010 and 2011 with Kyman Rowe. That was you, Lauren, right there on the screen. And that's you now, and you are still doing the show. And that must be so cool. And how did you feel that this production for you was a rite of passage?
Wow. Just growing up, progressing through the roles and reaching like a new level of ability and achieving the quality of the dance. I remember sitting on the side of on the bench in Act Two as Clara and watching the Spanish dance and the Nutcracker sisters, and to think that that's now me getting to do that. I take a lot of pride in it. It's like a privilege to get to dance the choreography. And I feel like a responsibility to uphold the standard that was initially set back in 2010. Um, so whenever I have the opportunity, I try and pass on the wisdom that I've learned, and just whether it's technical about the dance steps or about the what makes you move that way. I try to pass along to the other dancers in the company.
It's pretty brilliant. And actually, I mean, that's something I was going to mention to you, Sai, is growing up as a kid and being the little mouse and Fritz. And my dream, of course, had it not been for surgeries and many other things, my dream was one day to be the Mouse King. That was one of my dreams, was to play that role, and Mr. Stahlbaum and just those character roles and Drosselmeyer. Those were all roles I hope to one day play, which obviously are roles that you have either played or will play. And so when it comes to Drosselmeyer, I don't know if you play Drosselmeyer, but you'd be an incredible Drosselmeyer. Just putting it out there. But anyway, you have to talk to Roman about it. Anyway, basically, Roman, I think, has been the Drosselmeyer since the beginning of time. I think he was definitely doing Drosselmeyer the first year, but I'm assuming he's still doing it now. But anyway, all of this to say that, yeah, I definitely find so much admiration for you, Lauren, and what, for you in terms of that, just that simple accomplishment to have done those roles as a kid and then to do them as an adult. There's the whole in-between part that people can never even begin to imagine, that is becoming a professional ballet dancer. That is the difference between getting to do this as a kid and getting to do it as an adult. And that takes so much sheer determination and resilience and an immense amount of an incredible work ethic, which you did. So that makes you very special because you experienced the before and the after. So kudos to you, Lauren, for that. It's really unbelievable. And with you, Sai, it's really cool that you've come into this world. And I think you came into the world, obviously, as an apprentice. It was your first ballet with the company, if I'm not mistaken, right? As an apprentice. So could you maybe speak as well about how it felt as a rite of passage for you from your standpoint as, oh my God, this is my first ever real professional production with American Ballet Theater. How did that feel for you? The first ever show, first ever time you stepped on stage for ABT in this production?
It's really exciting, also a bit daunting because you come to the company and you see that everyone in the company knows this ballet. It's, an iconic ballet and it's been going on for a while, and you only have like a week to put it together. And it's just like there's a lot of feelings there, but like once you go on stage and everyone's sort of experiencing it together, It really is like a bonding experience, and it just is like a perfect introduction into like what you will experience with the company, because we do a lot of ballets and throughout the summer, and it's just like the perfect way to sort of be introduced to everybody and to how the company works. And I had an absolute blast, although I was, stressed as everyone was. It was really, really fun. I had a great time.
That's amazing. I'm really happy to hear that. It's really special. It must have been an incredible experience. It's being your first ballet. I'm just imagining that as like, as a professional dancer. The other thing I think that'd be great to touch upon as well is the fortune that people in the Costa Mesa, Orange County area have, especially those parents who have their kids in the William J. Gillespie School, in terms of the opportunity to perform with American Ballet Theater and the opportunity to be a Lauren, or to be a me if you wanted to, and you get to be a part of it as a kid and then it's over, or you could be a Lauren and be a part of it for your entire life, or you could be a Cy. But all of that, you have an opportunity for that to happen by being at the William J. Gillespie School. What would you say, Danielle? What would you say to parents who've dreamt of their kids becoming professional ballet dancers one day, and maybe they're in the Costa Mesa area, and maybe their kid is 6 or 7 years old? What would you say to them in terms of putting their kids in the William J. Gillespie School and having them audition for the William J. Gillespie School? What would be your advice?
Oh, well, I think the school is pretty incredible, and I was so excited that we made a West Coast school. It's certainly become an unbelievable tradition to have the school do the audition and to have these students come in. And I will add to this, in terms of the special experience of being able to come to ABT, something that we do that I think is really, really unique and special for Nutcracker is we actually have two Claras and two Nutcracker princes that are still in the company. It was Catherine Herlin as well as Lauren, and Duncan McElwain and Ty Malone. So all of them actually, we've created a situation where they coach the young principals of the school.
That's
So to me, that is one of the most special things, and in ballet in general, is when someone who learned the role from the choreographer, that's as close as you can get. If Alexei's not going to be there, Lauren coaching you is as close as you get, right? She was in all those rehearsals. And as Sai touched on, in terms of putting everything together in a week, these students, we audition every year out in the beginning of September, pretty much right when classes start. And they're rehearsed out there by a local great teacher, Sarah Jones, and she has been with the production now for many years and really is able to kind of encourage the kids and see their potential. And sometimes I think one of the most special things to me is when she is surprised. She knows these students very well, but they'll come and audition and we see something, and I'll see something not knowing the kids and say, wow, that was pretty impressive. And it's a surprising thing. So every time the students get to have those opportunities, I think it puts everything into perspective in terms of discipline, bringing kids to ballet school, and then getting the opportunity to actually perform, or even the experience of an audition, because again, not everyone gets it every year, but it's something you work towards, and then maybe you get it the next year. It's so gratifying for us, for the students. Parents tell us all the time what a wonderful experience they have. And frankly, that's our goal, is to make this an experience that will turn your student into either the next dancer, the next Corps de Ballet member, the next principal dancer at ABT, a dancer for life, or at the very least, a lover of the arts. And that's something we need to encourage everywhere these days. So yeah, I think it's a wonderful opportunity to put your student in the school if possible.
I think that's brilliant. And to piggyback on that as well, from personal experience, being somebody who was on that track, my goal was to one day be at ABT and be a principal dancer. It was my goal, like for all of us. And at one point, of course, I had many surgeries, so I had to stop at a critical age. But then, of course, I turned my life around towards filmmaking, and built my own production company and have made many feature films. And now I get to live a different dream, but a similar dream where I get to world build and create these pretty awesome productions. We were on a pirate ship out at sea recently for our latest feature film, and a medieval castle, and it's these kinds of worlds that we're recreating in that capacity. We're out west with the cowboys and all that kind of stuff. And so I definitely share that love for world building that Alexei had and has. But to go back to the point of why I'm mentioning it is also because I myself am one of those kids whose life was changed by this ballet, by Alexei, and by ABT. And I think that it goes to show that no matter what life brings, and life may bring 5 surgeries and all that kind of stuff, but what ABT gives you and what this Nutcracker production gives you is, I guess, a rush, an adrenaline rush, a love for adventure, and it puts you in a whimsical world that you always want to find again the moment you're out of it. Meaning that for me, the moment that whimsical world was no longer attainable, I had to find it elsewhere. It was like a drug. I needed to find that whimsical world that Alexei created. And I found it in my own way. And I think that for all of us to have grown up and want and experienced that whimsical world at a young age, then we're obsessed with finding it for the rest of our lives. And that's maybe the greatest gift that Alexei gave me and gave to us. Especially in this world where there's a lot of difficult realities. We all need a little bit of whimsical magic, and whimsical magic is just as powerful as scientific magic that doctors can produce in terms of curing the world. 50% of us needs to be physically cured. The other part needs to be emotionally cured. And I believe that comes from the arts and the ballets and Alexei's incredible creations. So basically, I think that I would love to have a few interesting closing thoughts. And I think that we can maybe start with, I guess I'll speak upon this and then I'll ask you, Danielle, because, obviously there's many people who come watch this production of the Nutcracker year after year as their sort of, go-to production for the Nutcracker. And the question would be, why do people come back and again? And I think we answered that earlier because of the fact that there are so many Easter eggs and so many bits and pieces you never see. There's so much spontaneity. There's so much room for changes, and you never know what you're really going to get because it's such a production that's so large and that is so much magic. But Danielle, from your perspective, what makes this such a special production to come watch again?
There's 2 things, and it's funny because while you were talking about just the magic, I'm reminded that the Nutcracker, not only do people come back year in and year out, but I always like to remind myself and those around me that for a lot of people, this is their entire introduction to ballet. This is their first ballet ever. And it's perfect for that. It's a 2-hour running time. It's 2 acts. It's engaging for children. And the fact that we get to have the privilege to be able to be that introduction to someone's young person who never even knew it existed, who maybe only grew up on screens and all those sorts of things, to hear a live orchestra. That's one of the things that I think keeps people coming back. And we're very fortunate with the Pacific Symphony Orchestra out in Orange County, as we were with the ABT Orchestra in New York. We love having that live music aspect.
Yes.
Other thing that I think definitely keeps people coming back, aside from the little Easter eggs that you say, which tend to form through the relationships on stage. Various people over the years, I've watched different things pop up and sometimes they peter out, but something new will come up. And it's really cute to watch. But for us, we have a different cast every single night. That is what does it. You cannot watch the show once and think you've watched the show.
Right.
Every single cast, every single character, as you said, people bring their own personalities into the characters. And I think that's also something that Alexei was sort of brilliant at bringing out, was letting dancers inspire him. And frankly, you inspired him to increased the role of the little mouse. And that a lot of that inspiration came from you, and how you would play in scenes. And it's this collaboration back and forth between a choreographer and artists that people get to witness something live that's going to change every single night a little bit. So what are those changes? What are the things? Did someone do something different? Lauren from night to night might say, "Oh, I'm going to try this differently and like it and stick with it." Or Size tries something different as the Mouse King. Whatever it is, people, I don't want to say they play with their roles, but they interpret them. They, make them their own. And it is so cool to watch that every single night.
Absolutely brilliantly said. Thank you. Thank you, Danielle. That was beautifully said. And with that, we are approaching the end of our time together on this really cool webinar, the ABT Book Club for the Nutcracker. And I would like to take a moment to thank our wonderful panelists, Cy Doherty, Lauren Bonfiglio, Danielle Ventimiglia, and myself, Justin Souriau-Levine. And of course, to thank our wonderful audience members that have watched this live and those who will watch it when they replay it. And of course, thank you for all sharing your time and your experiences with us today. And most importantly, for all of those watching, you can see ABT perform this incredible production of Alexei Ratmansky's The Nutcracker starting next week, featuring, of course, Lauren, Cy, and Danielle behind the curtain at Segerstrom Center for the Arts from December 11th to December 21st. And just for those who are a little hard of hearing, it's December 11th to December 21st. So you can write it down. And so to purchase tickets and to see the performance schedule, please visit abt.org. I also think it's like the coolest website there is out there. And of course, thank you all for taking the time to listen in. I hope to see you at the theater. As I just mentioned earlier to Danielle, we were hopping on. I'm actually going to be around, so you might see me as well. And of course, thank you again. And I wish you all a wonderful evening, and cheers to this incredible production and to 10 years at the Segerstrom for this incredible production, The Nutcracker. Long may it continue. And don't forget, it's okay to buy a ticket to every performance. No one's going to judge. It's totally fine. I would do the same thing. Have a beautiful evening, everybody. Thank you so much. And thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Cy. Thank you, Lauren. Amazing.
Holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays. Cheers.